Are you somebody that receives customer facing calls for not just some sort of vetted or very specific request type? Well, that's what the topic of today's episode is going to be about. This is actually a blind episode. So if you don't know what that means, it means that I've created these show notes in secret. Mike has no idea what they are because I have some questions later on in the episode where I didn't want him to prepare answers. I wanted some off the cuff answers. And I mean, that little introduction there was probably leaving you thinking like, what does that have to do with web development? Well, if we think about it, we handle as freelancers, as agency owners, as somebody who is customer facing, we handle a lot of client requests. And those requests can go, all the way from something that is completely not in our wheelhouse and is something that we just straight up wouldn't handle through 1.5 million things that we can handle, through another 1.5 million things that we think we can handle. And then of course there's the other side of the spectrum where it's like, other web developers do this. I've never done this. Should I do this? And so we're going to be discussing how to handle this variety of customer requests throughout this episode. And if this sounds interesting to you and you want to support the show, you can go and check us out on that Patreon, leave a review or rating on your podcast app, and join us in our Discord server or share this with your friends. And if you want to help out not only yourself, but us as well, you can net yourself up to 20% off a Scrimba Pro plan. You can do that. You can find that link, in the show description and in the show notes on htmlallthethings.com. Full details about that discount will be in the show notes on htmlallthethings.com. And remember that we are powered by Code Rabbit. They give you the power of AI code reviews to help cut your code review time in half. Check out the link in the show notes and episode description to net yourself a 14-day free trial, no credit card needed, and just a 2-click sign up with a GitHub or GitLab account. And so I think I'll kick off this episode. I've broken it down, as we do many episodes, into sort of various segments. And then there's a few questions here. And I want to break something down. So I think a lot of people, when they get started, and I think we were the same, Mike, think that freelancing, opening an agency, just putting yourself out there will vet the calls that you get, short of spam calls, of course. Meaning, I go on my website, I go on my landing page, I go on my social media, and I make it clear what it is I do. I design websites, I build websites, I do e-commerce, I do this, I do that. A bunch of different things that web developers can do. And I think at the end of the day here, a lot of clients aren't in our zeitgeist, if you will. They're not really aware of what it is that we do fully. And so they think, I need this app. And it might be like a native phone app or something like that. I need this app. I need this thing changed. I need this like electronic thing done, this tech thing done. And so they maybe kind of discover you through a Google search, and it might even been the wrong Google search. They could be Googling the wrong thing. Remember, they're not in our wheelhouse. And as a result, what ends up happening is they may give you a cold call and it might just be completely incorrect. I mean, at the end of the day, like they might be like, hey, like, can you make an app for like my car's console? Something silly like that, where it's like, what? And it's not like, I mean, that's not like, I would never call Mike if he had a landing page and said like, web developer. I wouldn't be like, oh, I can call Mike and he can develop an app for my car console. However, if we kind of like zoom out, we think about like, people not being experienced with tech. That's not that crazy of a request. And so my whole point with this episode is that the requests that we're going to get are like so wildly different and so varied and so diverse that we need to sort of have a procedure, I would think, in place to sort of vet and go through those customer calls. Because I mean, Mike, like you've actually been called about fixing someone's internet one time.
Yeah. I mean, and that was from not even like a client website or anything like that. That was from one of the extensions that we published on the Chrome App Store.
That's right.
Yeah, there was a support number somehow on there. I don't even know where they got it. And their, extension wasn't working. And they called me directly because the extension wasn't working. It was actually the one that you developed, the multiple apps, multiple whatever accounts.
Multiple accounts for Outlook.com. That's
I
right.
think that was it. So at least I think so. Maybe it was List by Design. I can't remember. But yeah, they called me and said, hey, your app isn't working. And I'm like, okay, tell me more. And as we went down the troubleshooting rabbit hole, because I've worked in IT before, so it wasn't like a crazy call for me to get, in about like 5 minutes, I realized that their internet was down. And
Right.
to be fair, like, they were very happy with that realization that I got them to that point when really it wasn't, my problem. And yeah, it was just you never know what kind of call you're gonna get, and the way you react to it might change a lot of things.
Because you never know like what someone else's procedure or thought process is like, right? Like this person, they use this app all the time. Maybe it goes down, they're like, go to the support page, somehow go to the support page, but probably on their phone's internet without realizing, go to the support page of the app, click the phone number or click the email, and then they, they're in contact with you, and then they're talking to you about something that, is ends up being their internet. And like to us, like we naturally, as people who used to be in IT, but also people who use tech a lot, we kind of like, and a lot of us do, like not just us, we like kind of troubleshoot, we check things, we kind of like double check who it is we should be calling, things like that. And then, but people not in that zeitgeist, not in that wheelhouse, like wouldn't know that. I mean, I call, my car mechanic, I call my doctor with some stupid questions from their wheelhouse, like perspective. Like they're probably just like, "The hell's this guy talking about? Like, why is he saying that his knee hurts, he thinks it's affecting his head or something?" I don't know, it's making that up. But the whole point is it's like, mate, like, is that a stupid question? Like, I literally couldn't tell you. Is there a nerve in the knee that hurts the head? I have no idea. Like, I do not know. I'm not sure. And so, like, to them it might be foolish, but but to me, who is not in that wheelhouse, like I mean, I don't know. And so I think what a lot of this comes down to is we need to have what I call the initial client call. And I don't mean some big, long, drawn out, scheduled with an an itinerary thing. I'm talking about something that is typically a cold call or maybe even a brief scheduled call where you talk about the needs of the client at a high level and you don't want to dive into too much detail. You're not going to dive necessarily into pricing. You're not going to necessarily dive into methodologies, things like that. And this call is largely designed to weed out anyone who is calling you incorrectly, meaning they may not need a web developer. They need someone else. They may need, a graphic artist that's going to be painting a mural on a wall or something like that. Like they may need someone else. And this initial client call isn't necessarily like a mandatory part of your procedure. Like some people will be like, a few text messages, a couple of emails, go back and forth, and then they want to have sort of a longer, more scheduled, more detailed call. But this is more of, if you're just like, who is this person? Or literally just your phone rings and you pick it up randomly and it ends up being someone that's like, hey, I need help, with a website. It's like, hey, like, you kind of caught me off guard. What do you need? Okay, this. Okay, send it to me in an email and then we'll set up something more formal. That's kind of the idea here. And so I feel like we should discuss like some of the kind of like the tips and tricks that we've picked up on over the years, Mike, for effectively listening to client requests. And I have my own note here, and I'd like to add for you to add as well. So I would say that the initial call is typically brief, and therefore I usually try to get a quick laundry list of items from the client. And then I'm able to take that quick laundry list and study, quote unquote, a little bit in preparation for that follow-up call, for that longer call. I'm able to go and take a look at what they're doing. So for example, we had a very random cold call one time for someone that just wanted a website tune-up, and that's how they worded it. But I had never spoken to this person. I didn't know who their website was from, and they were talking to me as if I knew what they were talking about. And I was like, sorry, I don't have an email from you. Like, who are you? Things like that. And so it's like, okay, and I was pretty inexperienced with it at the time, but I was like, okay, let's get a quick laundry list of what you're doing. Let's get your company name. Let's get your URL. What are you like currently on, like WordPress, Wix, whatever? Let's get a whole laundry list of things here. And generally what you want done in a very human conversational way, like not getting into like, well, that's PHP and like, all these technical things. You don't want to do that. It's going to talk to them like a human and get that laundry list. And then I can go and do my own homework. I can go to their website and see what's broken really quick, right? I don't have full access yet, but I can at the very least do a bit of studying and see like, okay, like these people, they need help with this. Like these people don't have e-commerce. They need their Google My Business card. They need this, they need that. And I'm able to study and from that laundry list kind of extrapolate and figure out what it is their plan is. And then I can then actually hold a long conversation with them and with like in a further call beyond this initial call. And then they can have that conversation with me back and forth. I can hold a conversation, they can add things, and it's more natural that way.
Okay, and I guess is the question like it? What other tip you would have for those?
Yeah, so like what like if someone were to cold call you like right now, Mike, like if someone were to cold call you like right away, like right now, like and there it's just like that, right? Where it's just sort of like, who are you? Like what do you what are you doing? Like I don't know who you are kind of thing. Like what would you do? Like do you agree with the laundry list? What like how do you deal with them? Like do you want to have that long call if you have time right away? What would be the tips and tricks kind of thing, I suppose, of your process, or how would you handle it if that cold call came in?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think my answer has changed throughout the years quite a bit. I think initially my answer would have been to have that long call right away. I think that's how I would have handled it and try to get as much information from them. But having the experience of doing those long calls a lot of times and nothing coming out of them from both for both sides, like it just not being advantageous, I would agree that you need to shorten the call. You need to get down to the cusp of it as quickly as possible. Now, there is an elegant way to do that without kind of cutting them off and being like, "Oh, stop. Let's get down." Like, you know what I mean? Like, don't cut them off completely. I think it's important to allow them to voice whatever they need to voice and then try to guide them to where you need to go, right? Like what you need from them at that specific time. If they're just coming at you with like for instance, a lot of times when you get a call like that, something has happened that has motivated them to reach out to local businesses to try to get something resolved. It's a problem, right? Like something has happened, their internet went down. Oh, their sorry, not their internet. Their website went down. Their website is out of date. Their current webmaster is gone. Like hasn't been around for a while. They can't get any updates on their website. Something is wrong. So they might be coming at it from a perspective of a little bit not aggression, but like frustration. That's probably a good way to do it. So
Yep.
they're gonna have a little bit of frustration when they're cold calling you like that. So you need to tune that down as much as possible and be like, hey, we're here to help. Let's figure out what's wrong, right? And then let's see where we can fit into your solution, right? Like that's how I would start the call with them. Try to bring it down, right? Try to bring their frustration levels down and try to get on their level of like, we're doing this together. We're going to try to get you resolved. And ideally, honestly, this is how I would approach it. Hear them out. Like they're going to voice their frustration. They're going to say whatever's wrong, X and Y and Z. If the solution is tough, right? If the solution is like, okay, like it sounds like you're going to need a redesign or a rebuild, or you need a website in general, like you don't have a website and customers are complaining about that, whatever, like locally, that's a totally different conversation. But something that is kind of a hack and could potentially get you business is to try to help them resolve something if it's minor. If you can resolve something on that initial intro call, if it's something that can take you 10 minutes, 5 minutes, right? Like maybe they have the login to their WordPress and they just don't know where to go to input their price. Something stupid like that. Like it can happen, right? And it's something you've done a million times and something you can resolve. Just be like, hey, let's do it. Let's do it right now. So you need to gauge where the energy is that you can put in. But if you can resolve something on the initial call, you're almost guaranteed to get their business going forward. That's just the reality of it. Because they're calling you out of frustration, resolve the frustration. That's a pleasant experience. And even if you don't charge for it at that point, because it's 5 to 10 minutes of your time, that's a huge win for both you and the customer. So that's one little tip I would say. If you can swing it, it's not easy and it's not going to happen on every call. I would say it's a minority thing, but always have that in the back of your mind when you're talking to them. If there's a way for you to interject and resolve their issue right away, that is going to make you stand out.
It's a good little bit of salesmanship, I'd say, right?
Yeah.
Ultimately, like you're helping them out really quick, and then you're getting in there, like you're kind of like getting in the weeds a little bit, and you're helping them out, and then they're like, "Oh, okay, this person, potentially is the solution to my frustration." I guess like one of my other questions, I'll like kind of like rephrase one of the ones I have in the notes here, just because it's so closely related. But I wanted to like touch on how to ask the right questions to clarify project scope. And like my advice generally was like ask about ideas and goals. Don't be very like super specific. So for example, you might say something like, would you want to be able to easily share these blog posts to Facebook? Rather than saying something like, hey, we need a full social media strategy and like, blah, 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 blah. And that like Facebook comment that I just said may have come from the fact that they were talking about their Facebook page driving sales and they just kind of mentioned that passively. And so you be very human with them. I guess my question, like, at this point is like, because you're right, like that is good salesmanship, like trying to solve something quickly. Like, how would you? Because I assume you agree with what I just said. Like,
Yeah.
ask about kind of broad ideas. It's a very more. It's an initial call. It's a very casual conversation. So, like, how would you, I guess, get down to the meat and potatoes of like, hey, let me solve an issue? Maybe it's more natural than I'm thinking. Like, I'm just sort of thinking like at that point you're kind of getting into the weeds a little bit more, but like it's probably just going to come up in their frustration and in their regular conversation, maybe.
That's the thing is like it's a very case by case basis. If they're calling you and again out of frustration, a lot of times it will be a very specific thing that they're frustrated about, and that's where you can gauge if you can help them right away or
Right.
if you need to do what you're saying and get the laundry list, break it down, tell them that hey, I have enough information right now, right? Like after you get all that information that you got, let me go back, let me take a look at it, let me send you an email with what I think the next step should be, and then that email will have way more more information, potentially a second call set up, and a much better place for you to actually go in and start to try to solve things for them or put in a plan in place to actually implement whatever solution they want. But initially, when you're trying to get out of them, is always the frustration. Like, why are they calling you? And
Right.
sometimes it's not gonna be straightforward to get out of them because they might, like, be afraid to tell you for whatever reason. Like, sometimes they might try to, like, shroud it in different ways, so you might have to ask very direct questions, like, "Hey, is your" like, I think you even mentioned it, "Is the website that you have right now not meeting the goals of what you have?" And then you can
Right.
get something out of them of being like, "Actually, no, it's not." Or, "You know what? Yes, it is, but this one page on that website is just not driving the traffic," or, "I had a customer come in today and say they couldn't find me." That's a very common one, right? Like, a lot of times that if it's a local business, they'll be like, "My customers are telling me that I'm hard to find."
Right.
And
Right.
so
Like
in
literally physically or online or
correct,
both
exactly.
for that
Or
matter.
both, yeah, yeah, like, they were just like, they only found me because they were walking by, so at that point, that's not something you can solve on a call, but you have the frustration, you understand what the objective is, you have a good enough you have some information to start setting up the second call and getting, like, a more robust plan in place to get them online, stuff
And you
like
could
that,
study
so
that too. Like you could take a look and be like, hey, do they have a Google My Business card? Yes, but the address is wrong. Yes,
yeah.
but the pin is wrong or something. The
Mhm.
pin is not like at the entrance of the building. It's at like the legal, like where the address is assigned or something. Like it's at the other side of the property. We've actually had that for a client where people were GPSing to his business and it was just going to like the address that Google had found. And I guess that's like where the property stake was or however they determine that. And it was on the other side of his property because he owned a multi-acre farm, and so I was like, what we're going to do is we're literally going to take your address and I'm going to put it right where your sign is. Where's your sign? Sign's here. It's at the driveway. Perfect. Going to put it right here. So then it's literally going to say your destination's here. They're going to be like, where? Well, there's literally only you and the other farm, and you're the only guy that has a sign. So clearly it's you and it's your name. And then you move in and then there you go. And he said like that's been like super valuable to the point where like at one point Google for whatever reason like swapped it back for like a week and he actually got complaints and then I got to go back in and make the request again and it's been solid ever since. But like that is something where like I could study that after that initial call. I could do a little bit of research and then be like, okay, this is something I'm going to bring up on that follow up call or that more intense call, right? I think the thing is though is like one thing that is going to scare a lot of people when we talk about this is like a lot of the things that we've been talking about right now are very in our wheelhouse, right? Google My Business cards, websites, messing around with a WooCommerce price, things like that. A lot of these requests are going to come in, and this is going to be kind of like a bit of a change in gears for the episode because you now know, like, hey, initial client call, then a bigger call. But like, what about? And this is the big one, right? What about those calls where it's like, I don't know if I can do this. I don't know if I can do this, and then like trying to vet those, right? And so I think that this initial call, especially if it's a cold call, this person has called you out of the blue, right? Or they've said like they've sent you an email and been like, I want to do a 2 minute call with you today. That's your initial quick call, right? I think, and Mike, like correct me if I'm wrong and like kind of add your comments. This is more of an open-ended question, I guess, or open-ended topic, but I think that this is the perfect time to identify whether the request is within your skill set or requires additional expertise. In my opinion, what you should be doing is you should be vetting this call right now. You're on the call, you're vetting it right away, but not too seriously. Because 99% of the things that I have done in the past, if I had tried to be like really vet it on the cold call, you gotta remember it is a cold call. I'm not in like the mindset of your project yet. So 90% of the things out of the top of my head, my brain's being like, no, you don't know how to do that. Stop. Don't do it. Don't do it. Don't do it. And I'm just like throwing, like I would be churning through clients nonstop, getting rid of them, getting rid of them, getting rid of them. No, I don't do that. I don't like, I only use WooCommerce. I don't use this other thing. Meanwhile, like, they're the two things are like near identical, right? And I could do it. So I think this is like a really important step that we're going to dive into with another section later in the episode. But like vet the call right now, but don't be too serious, right? Some people, though, like with this being said, some people are blatantly calling the wrong person. Like if they're blatantly calling the wrong person, don't be afraid to be like, yo, you need to call someone else. Like, yo, I don't fix tractors. Like something like that, like obviously, but there's going to be some tech stuff. Like if you call and be like, I need an expert in financial digital systems. That is not me. That is not Mike. That is not anyone that I know currently in the industry. So unfortunately, you're gonna have to go somewhere else. Like I'm not. I can do like math and like have like make you a budgeting website or a budgeting app or a budgeting blog, for example, in terms of like financial stuff. So that's where that vetting comes in, right? Where they might come and they might call you and say, "I need a financial expert," and you're like, no, I'm out. But then again, don't take it too seriously. But then you like keep talking to them in that natural way in this initial call. And then you find out what they meant was, oh, like I want to make like a very simple home budgeting web app that's on my WordPress website where someone can like type in four numbers to like generally find out how much they should be saving on like a very simple percentage basis or something like that. And it's like, oh, like I can do basic math and programming. So I don't need to be a financial expert. I can, basically enhance your blog kind of thing. And that's totally fine. However, if the person sticks to their guns and they're like, no, I need a financial expert, that person's out. I'll give an example. We had a person call me out of the blue randomly. Okay. And they actually got to like a third or fourth call. So normally, like, we're talking about just two calls, the initial call and then a future call and then like a longer call. This person wanted to like break this up to like 3, 4 calls. Okay, whatever, customer service, I'll do that for them. And the initial call, I was like 50-50. I was like, like I can do some of the stuff she's saying, but I don't know. Like she's not being very clear with what she wants. Just to be clear, try to clarify it a couple times on the call, trying to do that vetting, and it didn't work. So it's like I vet again, have another call, and I do some more vetting. I do that 2 or 3 times, and then eventually I was like, you know what, I'm out. And like that's okay. And like you and I had that conversation, Mike. And like I'm not going to give out details, but it was like this person needed someone who was a product developer. I don't even know what you want to call it. Not a developer as in like programmer. Like I mean like a hardware real world thing. Like they needed someone that would like could take something from an idea, get it made in a manufacturing facility and get it shipped, the logistics, everything, and then have a website on the side. But they wanted us to do like everything because they were like, oh, it's all digital now. Well, I don't know if it is, if it's all this physical stuff. So it's kind of like, you vet, you do whatever. So I'll let Mike talk now. Like obviously, like so, like while you're doing the vetting on this like initial call, like how do you identify whether the request is for you? Like, how strict are you? That kind of vibe. What do you think on that?
Yeah, it's a good question because I'll be honest, most of the tasks that I've ever taken, or maybe all is maybe an actual word, is something I can actually say. All of the contracts, all of the jobs I've ever taken were out of my wheelhouse, but they weren't like astronomically out of my wheelhouse. So I'll give an example similar to what Matt's saying. If someone were to come to me and ask me to build like a new banking database in COBOL because it needs to attach to, whatever banking database that already exists, that's not just outside of my wheelhouse. That's almost like like I would say 90% outside of my wheelhouse. I understand programming fundamentals, and that's about it from that whole aspect. So I would say I have a 10% understanding of the task, right?
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
right, like that would be about where it is. If something is a hardware related thing, so like Matt, you mentioned like, hey, build me a phone. I would say I understand 1% of that whole pipeline, right? So that's completely out of my wheelhouse. So I like to break it down a little bit into those percentages for myself. Where I am confident in my skills is somewhere in the 60-40 range. So where I understand 60% and 40% of it is unknown to me. That's usually where I sit when I take on new tasks, new roles, new contracts. So 40% is still a big number of things that I don't know how to
Right.
do, right? but at least I have a solid foundation in the 60%. It gets dicier as you go down, or as you split it more into 50-50 range. That's where I'm really considering if I should do it or not. And then
Right.
as soon as it gets below 50 is when I'm usually going to say no, right? Like if I don't understand 50% of the task given to me, like the chances of success go down for both you and the client. So
Of course.
that's where you have to kind of compromise. And the tough thing to do is get all the information you possibly can from the client to understand where you lie in that, that split. But once you do get all that information, you can do your own analysis. And again, I like the kind of percentage based approach of like how much of this do I know, how much of it I don't, by just writing down literally what the project entails and where the black boxes are. And if you can find yourself in a 60-40 split, it's still a risk. Like there's no guarantee you're going to be able to solve it. But a lot of times, from my from how I've approached problems, you can usually figure out that 40%, right? Like it's not going to be easy, and it's usually something I tackle first. That's another thing is like when you actually accept that kind of role, the unknowns are unknowns. So
Right.
you better be able to solve them. And if you can't solve if you leave them till the end and all of a sudden you can't solve them, like you're kind of screwed. So I usually take that 40% and that's what I tackle first. But like that's where I lay in it. I think you have to accept that you're not gonna know something about each project that you do, no matter how much experience you have, especially because the tech industry is moving so quickly now with all the AI stuff, like, that's another black box, right? Like, I'm working on an AI project right now on my contract. A huge black box is all the AI stuff, all the RAG pipelines, all the vector embeddings, all of the actual LLM integrations, the agents, the chatbot, like all of that is an unknown to me. But I have a good foundation in the programming fundamentals and how to use APIs. So that like, I'm over 60% there. So I was confident enough to take that on because I can do the research. I understand how to learn new concepts pretty quickly, iterate, test, out an MVP, figure out where I went wrong, and go. So that's my advice to you. Now that again, the hard part is extracting that information from one call. It might take more calls. And another thing that you mentioned is like the customer doesn't know what they want 99% of the time. So they might be throwing shit out at you that think like you're gonna have to launch a satellite. But at the end of the day, it could be they're just referring to plugging into a Google Maps API. That's literally a cycle that could happen where they're like, well, we need the
I think
GPS.
this is related to a project you and I did, right? With the
Yeah,
right turn thing.
they're correct. Yeah, exactly. Like they legitimately initially thought that we might need to plug into satellites in space, like directly,
Yeah.
like actually like partner with a satellite company.
Let's call up
And
NASA real quick.
yeah, like that would like can we handle that? No, we can't partner with a satellite company. I don't we don't have the connections, we don't have the capabilities.
For two
Can we
people.
plug yeah, can we plug into a Google Maps API though? And that's what it ended up being. Yes.
I remember that project, like, I'm not gonna, like, disclose what it was, but I remember, like, the guy gave me this, like, huge, like, project breakdown, and, like, just to kinda, like, tell a brief little story, it's like, he's giving me this huge project breakdown, and, I mean, I agree with Mike's thing, the 60-40. I was about at this point, I was about 80-20, so I could do about 80% of it, and, like, much of it was just like, "Oh, yeah, like, I'm gonna have to figure out how to get some uploading things to work from a phone or something, no big deal." Going through, hit this little thing, and it was like, have a have a dynamic navigation app, and I was like, oh, this is the project. I remember I texted you, it was like, all of this, like these 8 pages, nothing. Those are gone. All that matters is us solving this navigation thing. It was like, it has to dynamically understand the turning situation of every road that these people may go through, dynamically generate detours if they go off course. And the whole reason why this nav app was going to be special is because in no circumstance were the people using this navigation app supposed to ever turn left unless there was no other option across traffic of a certain traffic level. What?
Well,
And so I
yeah.
remember I texted you and I was like, this whole like other thing where I was 80-20, throw it all out. I don't care about this at all. The only thing that like this is a navigation app. Like that's the project. make the navigation app first. I was like, the other thing we can get like up on WordPress, like if I just like didn't sleep much, which is not healthy, but if I didn't sleep much, I could do that in like a week or two if they gave me all the pictures and stuff. Get it all done, get it all gussied up, whatever, SEO it, and then boom, ship it, and that's it. I could figure that out, and then I may have some weird photo uploading thing or whatever, but I have to figure that out, and then I mean, it's been done before. But I don't know if the other thing has been done before with the like dynamic left. I was like, we're gonna have to survey. Like, I'm gonna have to get in my car and survey the area, and then if there's construction, I have to survey the construction, and I'm gonna have to have like the construction company call me. I flipped out. I was like, this is incredible. Hilariously, we lost that contract because we were like, well, like we don't know how to do this like weird navigation app thing. Someone else got it, and they didn't do that. And I was like, what? Like,
Yeah, but that shows that we lost that contract not because we couldn't do that, it's because we couldn't sell them on the fact that that was not the right path.
that's fair.
That's
Yeah, like it's
yeah,
on us for
it
sure.
was yeah, it was 100% on us, 100% early on in our careers. We weren't good at sales. I don't know if we are good at sales right now, but we're better. And we lost it because we couldn't explain to them in the proper way that, "Hey, we can't beat the Dijkstra? I can't remember what it's called." So, like,
Turkstra, the tool
Dijkstra
company,
algorithm, the multi
lumber maybe.
like, they calculate distance between multiple points because they essentially wanted us to recreate Google Maps in a way
Oh,
that, like, with the directional algorithms, but with only left turns too, like, or avoid all left turns, I can't remember. So
based upon dynamic and changing
well, that's what I mean,
conditions of
like, and
road.
yeah, and, like, there's an algorithm that calculates distance between multiple nodes that's, like, it's been the algorithm, Dijkstra, DJ something, whatever,
Uh,
algorithm. Interestingly enough, a
oh
Chinese
no.
researcher just made a new algorithm that beats it, but
All right.
the Dijkstra algorithm has been around for 40 years, and it's been the best algorithm 40 years. So they were asking us to essentially create a better algorithm that has stood the test of math for 40 years. That's where the disconnect was, right? Like we can't break math. We're not mathematicians. We understand math to a very, very shallow level, to enough to use it, enough to implement it, but we're not creating algorithms, new algorithms, like, bespoke algorithms for navigation. Like, we're just not. Even
No.
Google is, to a certain degree, they're adapting Dijkstra to a better degree, but like they're not they weren't able to beat it. They weren't they had to use it. So now maybe they'll use this new Chinese algorithm, which is awesome, but like, that was the limitation there.
Yeah, it was a bit of a. I mean, it wasn't. I freaked out. Yeah,
Yeah.
and stuff. I
Yeah.
flipped that page, read it about 14 times. Was like, Mike, what the hell are we being instructed to build? Like, this is one of the craziest things. Like, for one person, I was like, what are we gonna do? We're gonna have to plug into multiple counties and towns and cities and somehow get them to give us the construction information. Or if they like change the road, no. Like,
It's
get
fine.
like lane keep. Like, I don't even know what to do. I don't even know what to do. Like, it was like I can't do this. But anyway, this is a great transition into sort of like the end slash the meat and potatoes of the episode in terms of conversation, navigating the knowledge gaps. So like, this is again,
Mhm.
that end part we just talked about, how like there's going to be now like knowledge gaps. There's going to be navigation gaps like in this navigation app. You're right, there is, because I can't do that. Not without a lot of time and like a lot of money. Like, let's be clear, like I'll figure it out. I need a lot of money and like probably multiple people. Like,
No, 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 that one's money can't solve. That one, like, that one people
great. So
and money
I'm
can't
gonna
solve.
go in
Yeah.
there with my 80/20 or whatever, and
That will be the failure. Like, that will be the actual failure, unfortunately. If we accepted that, we would have been screwed.
I'll have to have my like solemn LinkedIn post like,
Mhm.
I've walked away from this a failure, but I've walked away stronger.
And to be fair, the result of the next agency that took that on could have been failure.
That's true.
They could have took it on saying that they could do that, but at the end of the day, they couldn't, and therefore they might have had to take a loss on it. So we
That's
don't know
that's
what
true.
the result of it was. I think it's still, again, on us to be able to sell them on an impossible task. Like, we can't do this impossible task. Here's what we can do instead. That kind of thing, in a better way. But maybe an agency just sold them on, this, and then at the end of the day, they couldn't do it, so they had to release something.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's absolutely true. I mean, they could have even had to outsource it as well, like, or something, right? Where
Maybe.
like we don't know what's going on. Like, I don't know that what that nav app would be called, if it exists, or if it's a web app or something. I only saw like the public facing like marketing app or the marketing website that was eventually made, and I was like, hey, like someone did that thing that like that we were instructed to do.
Mhm.
I guess, quote unquote, minus or possibly minus that nav app. But yeah, no, yeah, back to like navigating the knowledge gaps. I guess a big question is like, so okay, like you've decided or you're thinking of like thinking seriously of taking on a project. Let's just say you use Mike's 60/40 or even a better like 80/20 where you understand 80 and you like, you don't understand 20. Everyone's unique, so everyone's gonna have a different ratio. Should you quickly learn new skills or tools when a project requires it? And I know that that's like a big question because you can, of course, leverage online resources like tutorials and community support and all these kind of things. And that is something that you would do for yourself. That's a big thing that I always think of is it's like, if I really wanted to do something like this, I would, leverage all these online resources and I would like try to get it figured out and stuff like this. Right. And it would allow me to like not count myself out on certain projects. Like I'd be able to like and again, this is like for me personally, right? It's like if I wanted to build some crazy gaming website and there's like a whole bunch of holes in my knowledge, I would leverage all these resources, I would figure it out, I would get it done, and that's that. However, there's a question there where it's like I'm a newbie at those skills. Is that okay to be such a newbie? And I actually think we have another episode on this, but is it okay to be such a newbie when you're trying to ship a project? Like, because it's like, hey, like I'm gonna like learn all these skills for my own thing. If I can only really be mad at myself. If my site goes down, I'm only mad at myself. But for a client, it's like my site, their site's down, they rely on it. Now what? And like you might not have the knowledge to fix it. And so like, is quickly learning new skills to fill those gaps? Like, does it make sense? And obviously, like quick things, like little things where it's like, hey, I forgot this little CSS property. Obviously, that's okay. But what about like, bigger things where it's like, I have to use Tailwind CSS for some reason on this project and I've never done that before. Like, can I confidently do that as a newbie?
It depends how newbie. I think it all comes down to your ability to learn quickly. Like as you become more senior in your role as a developer, knowledge gaps start to become less daunting because you've done it a million times, you've learned a new skill a million times, so you have an approximation for how long it usually takes you to pick up something like Tailwind or pick up a completely new framework or, design a new database system that you haven't worked with before. Like you have a little bit more knowledge into what you don't know and how you approach those options. As a complete newbie, you don't have that knowledge. You don't know what you don't know. That's kind of like the phrase there. And it kind of goes one of two ways. You either are overconfident and over under deliver. So you overpromise and under deliver, which is the bad one, right? And that can happen at the beginning, not even not even on purpose, but just because you're just starting out, you don't have the knowledge that you don't know something. You could agree to an entire project not knowing that half of it you don't know completely. Like you just think that, hey, I'll just do like Superbase or something easy that I've worked with before, but realize that, hey, that's not going to fit this amount of users or whatever. So that can easily happen by mistake. But then there's the other side of it where you can take on too much as a newbie on purpose to try to kind of throw yourself in the fire. And that's a sink or swim situation. And the reality is a lot of people put themselves into that situation and you'll find out if you can do it. And it depends on what your appetite is for failure and what your, ability is to just grind. That I'm not saying that that's a good way to do it, but I can guarantee you that a lot of successful developers have been in that situation and have put themselves through the the task of getting to a better stage of development by being in that fire for a little bit, right? Of putting themselves there, having a deadline that they have to meet that seems unrealistic and trying to grind through it. Again, not really advising you on this because for the client's sake, it might be a bad thing. It's just tough to advise against it as well because again, a lot of people do that, and that's a really common way to up your skills quickly.
Is it what would you call it elitist? Like there's like that elitist mentality of like, well, I guess not if you're doing it to yourself, or maybe it is. I don't know, but it's like I know that like when something's elitist, I start getting pretty anxious about this. Like a lot of this is like kind of like personal anxieties and personal worries because you're like, I have all these knowledge gaps. But then like what you're talking about is there's realities to that, right? Where it's like, yeah, like you can be like too nervous and too cautious, and I'm definitely a person that errs on that side where I'm too cautious, whatever. But like there are realities where it's like, I might get the project 90% of the way done. It needs that other 10% though. Like, it's not like, an MVP can be shipped now or something, and I can't do the other 10. And I don't have the money to hire somebody. And the deadline's due. There's those realities that come in, and it's like that would be a sink or swim, like kind of what you're saying.
That
Where it's
that's
like
yeah, that's
like
exactly what I'm saying.
that's a sink or swim scenario where it's like you may just think like, oh, whatever, keep pushing that 10% off. What if it's even 5% of the project? But that might be the keystone, right? Like pulling, like, how many apps that we know of require the API, which is a third party API to them, require that API to function. And if that API gets taken down, is that app in serious trouble? Yeah, there's a lot of them. For example, like game collection apps. Those apps have a lot of features where you can like write down what games you have in your collection, if it's on PlayStation 2 or Xbox or this and that, and up, down, left, right, center. However, one of the big things is you can scan the whatever you call the barcode on the back, or visually, right? With your camera, you can like take a picture of the case or whatever, and then an API like finds that game, finds the edition of the game, and like automatically logs it for you and things like that. That API also likely is the one that gives them the power to have a knowledge base or a database of games where they know what's available. Well, that app has like 100 features, but if you take that one feature away, which is that API that like catalogs the games and like has the database of games, like the housing of games, is that app useful? Not really. And so if you cannot figure out how to connect that API and use that API properly, even though you got 9 of the 10 features, let's just say, or 99 of the 100 features, that one feature might be that keystone. And that is exactly what Mike's saying, right? Like that's your sink or swim. Which is also like to touch base on like why you tackle that 40% of unknown things before
Right.
you start tackling the 60, because you want to at the very least know. It's almost like a sanity check, because you want to, if you can't figure it out in the first week and it's a 9-week project, you better tell the client at the beginning of the first week that you're in trouble.
And that's the thing, like, if you're communicating with the client as you're going through it, you can mitigate some of these situations, right? Like, they're probably paying you a lot less than they're gonna pay someone that, could have been 80-20 on this. So there's an intentional transaction there, right? So they're paying you a lot less, and therefore, sometimes the expectations are still high, sure, but the reality is that you have the ability to push back. You have the ability to talk to the client. You have the ability to communicate with the client. So if it happens that, 2 weeks in, you realize that you can't do this feature, you tell the client like, "Hey, I'm not going to be able to finish this by this time. Like, I'm going to need another 3 weeks, 4 weeks just to finish this one feature. Maybe let's do this other release, like the 9 out of 10 in beta. We can get some feedback on these features with some messaging about, hey, this feature is coming soon, and I'll spend the next 4 weeks just developing that feature. I'll bring someone else in. Let's get some more budget on this. Whatever. You can have those conversations. If you don't take on the project, you can never have those conversations. So you failed immediately. So I honestly think like sometimes you have to take a little bit of a leap of faith with the knowledge that some of it could fail. And most of the time, I want to say that you're probably going to be okay, even if you have 9 out of 10 features, because that 10th feature might not be as critical as the client thought, and therefore you would be okay. So I lean on the side of optimism in these situations where like I think it's important to put yourself in situations that are going to be difficult, and you're probably going to make it through to a certain degree. And even if you fail, as long as you're communicating, as long as you're going through it, you're going to learn a ton. You're going to have those conversations with the clients, and it could still work out in the end. Right now, there could be epic failures, like where we haven't talked about what happens if you can't do 9 out of the 10 features.
That's
That's
real
an epic
bad.
failure, right? You better learn that right away, and then you can always give the client back their money.
Yeah.
Like,
and
that's the thing,
and
like
and hopefully there's like clauses and things if you do like a formal contract, right, to like get out of those things, right? Like for you to be able to say like, hey, like if everything goes wrong, like this is what happens. I return your money and I and I leave or
Mhm.
something. And like what you said here, like is I actually, because you don't have access to these notes as a blind episode, but like that's literally my one of my main points here. My next point, I was going to talk about how because you were talking about salesmanship earlier, Mike. We actually, and some people say this is bad salesmanship. We actually are very transparent with our clients. We talk to them. We have like a really like honest, whatever. If something's gone wrong, we'll tell them things like that. And a lot of people are kind of like, that's bad salesmanship. Like you should be a yes man, right? You should be a yes man. You should be helping them no matter what, getting them through no matter what. pulling them through no matter what. That's what you should be doing. We don't do that. And as a result, we've had a ton of clients not work with us. I'm going to say this though. We've had a ton of clients on the other side of the fence I've literally had comments or like calls or people have called and said, you're one of the only people where like you just say what's happening in a freaking email. Something's gone wrong here. I'm not home right now. I will be home tomorrow and I will look at it and email you at 9 a.m. whether I've started working on it or not. And at 9 a.m., I email them a status. And that's that. Like it's just blatant. I tell them the truth. I'm not going to be like, oh, and then like now I'm panicking for the whole day when I'm not home. And then they're panicking that, it sucks that the thing went down for a day. But again, we're just a small agency and they're aware of that. And that's also something we're transparent about. I bring that up to people all the time where I go, we don't have a help center. We don't have a IT desk. We don't have a 24/7 coverage or support or anything like that. We're two people. And we've had a lot of people. One guy said, I remember I've worked with this guy for like 8-9 years. We forgot to do something. Like the guy gives us a bunch of tasks and like we've worked together forever. And I forgot to do some stuff. And I'll just tell him that like, shoot, sorry, man, I forgot to do that thing. And he's like, he literally told me like in person, I was doing a meeting with him. He said, you're the only company that will ever just say, oh shoot, sorry, I forgot to do that. I'll prioritize that and get it done tomorrow. And he's like, honestly, he's like, a lot of people think that that's bad sales. He literally told me this, that like a lot of people think that that's bad marketing or bad salesmanship. However, he's like, I appreciate it because he's like, you and I are working together at this point. We've been working together for like a better part of a decade. And he's like, and I appreciate it when you're just like, oh shoot. And don't market to me. Like, don't fake it and be like, oh, I did do it, but I forgot to press send or, whatever. It's like, be very blatant, be very blunt, and just, be honest. Like, don't be a jerk, but just, I forgot to do that. I'll do that tomorrow. Sorry, man. Some people hate it, but again, a lot of our clients are with us because of that. Because they want clear and honest communication. They want to know exactly what's going on. And it's also kind of like compassionate in a way, or like very human to be like, oh, like Matt just forgot to do it. He'll do it tomorrow. And like, they might be like, well, it's like some people are like, the customer's always right kind of thing. And it's like, I'm not going to make it right for you. I'm just letting you know that like a little mistake happened or like something was forgotten or like I bumped the wrong button or what have you. And I'm just going to tell you that
I think people are afraid of consequences, which is
for
like
sure.
fair to a certain degree, but that's where I really think people need to own the consequences of their actions sometimes as well. Like sometimes you're going to say something that's going to piss someone off. Like maybe it's something you forgot that is super critical and it's going to piss them off. But the thought process of like not saying it and them finding out on their own down the line is going to piss them off usually 10x more. Right? So you
Yes.
have to mitigate that situation. Be aware of the consequences. The consequences might be that you lose the client.
Hmm.
Like that's a possible consequences of telling someone the truth.
Of which we never have. You
Correct.
and I have never have.
Yeah, when we've told someone the truth about something bad that's happened, we've never lost a client, but it can happen if it's the right
Oh,
client,
totally.
right? Like or the wrong client, whatever. You have to accept that those are the consequences, and you have to go in it with the mindset of you want to fix the situation, right? And if you lose the client in that perspective, you're losing the client in a faithful way. Whereas if you were to hide this stuff from them, the potential is that the client could sue you. The client could get pissed. The client could not only get pissed and fire you, they could sue you, right? Like
Yep.
it could escalate. It could escalate even more and more and more. So you have to mitigate the situation always. And it's the same thing with like if you're working at a startup or you're working at a corporation. A lot of times, the things that bring an employee down is their inability to communicate their mistakes. I'm
Yeah.
going to tell you right now, like people have been fired in my general area for that exact reason. Not the mistakes. I want to be clear here. The mistakes were not the things that made the person not like, fired. It was their inability to own their mistakes and communicate them in a proper way.
Yeah. And not try to cover it up because then it's like, is this guy lying?
Correct.
Is this
Exactly.
person lying
You
all the
lose
time
trust.
to like make themselves look better?
Yeah.
Like,
Everyone makes mistakes. Like everyone, literally everyone makes mistakes, no matter who you are, CEO, like whatever. Like you're gonna make a ton of mistakes. It's
yeah,
the cover up. It's always gonna be the cover up that screws you.
100%.
Yeah.
Like,
Even if you're successfully covering stuff up, that's another thing. It's like people think like, "Oh, I've covered up 5 of these. Like, I'm just gonna keep covering up. Like, I was able to patch it in the background, no one noticed." Stuff like that. One of those is gonna bite you in the ass if you keep doing it. It's going
mhm.
to bite you in the ass, and then they're gonna be like, "Well, wait, what else did you cover up?" And they
Yeah,
might
I
find it.
mean, it's a good question.
Yeah.
If someone, like, lied to me about something, like, if it was, like, so especially if it's something that's not my wheelhouse. If it's, like, something like, they claim they fixed my car and then they didn't,
Yeah.
and I, like, get back in it and it doesn't friggin' start or something, and I'll be like, "Did you change my oil?"
Exactly.
You know what I mean? I asked you to change my oil as well. Did you change my oil? Because the car also doesn't start still, kind of thing. But if they say, "Oh shoot, you know what? I forgot to I did change the starter. I forgot to plug it in or whatever." Clearly not my wheelhouse.
Mhm.
Then I'll be like, "Oh yeah, okay, plug it in then." It's like I'm not gonna be like, "You idiot." Although some clients will, like for sure, some people will absolutely lose their mind. But like that's not what I'm gonna do, and a lot of people won't do that either. There's one other thing I want to touch on in this episode, really quick, and that is that even if you do have a knowledge gap, we've talked about navigating it kind of to death at this point. There's another way to navigate it, and that is that you don't navigate it, you outsource it. And I just want to have like a brief conversation because I feel like it could be a conversation almost in a podcast episode of its own, outsourcing. But I just have two questions. I'm just going to lay them out on the table right now. We'll kind of have a brief little chat about it at the end here. What are the signs that a project might be better suited for a specialist? And the second question here, and it's a two-parter, is how to approach and collaborate with other freelancers or agencies? Should you subcontract or completely outsource? So, bit more or less, how do you decide to subcontract? And if you do subcontract, are you still in the picture, or have you completely like eliminated yourself from doing said thing?
Okay. Okay. So for the first one, when do you subcontract, right? Like when is the decision point of being like, oh, I can't do this, or when is the decision point that we need to bring someone on? So I think there's like with any decision, there's going to be many factors in it. I think some of the factors will be budget for sure. That's going to be a big one because if the budget is big enough, then and the client needs something done faster, that's going to be an indication that you can and should subcontract, right? Like you should get someone on to help you out. If the client is like, I don't care how much it costs, essentially, I need this out by September, and it's like July. That's your opportunity to bring a solution to the table. Like, yeah, I can't do this on my own. You're going to realize that probably pretty quickly. I have an almost unlimited budget. Like, I mean, unlimited within quotes. They always say unlimited, but it ends up being like very limited. But you can figure that out. and and that's when you would want to bring someone on. The other thing is knowledge gap. Like you're saying, you have a serious knowledge gap. How important is that feature that the knowledge gap relies on? Right? Is this an MVP that we're building for one client, for one person, or 10 people to start using? Probably don't need to subcontract that out. Is this a established application with, a million users that are using it every day, and there's a feature that needs to be built for all a million users to use it the next day? That's a good indication that this is a high stakes feature that maybe your knowledge gap isn't suited for.
Right.
You might need to subcontract that out, right? Like you can build out the other stuff, but hey, this database connection or this database architecture maybe needs a subcontractor. You need to bring an expert in.
And that doesn't mean you can't like spend the time learning that thing to kind of get familiarized with it. But like, I think maybe at that point, and like, correct me if I'm wrong, Mike, like, it's kind of a question of like, hey, if I put this in there and it breaks, I don't even know where to look to turn it back on or get it back working. If this is your first, I mean, something as simple as like a WordPress install. If this is your first WordPress site and that site is like mission critical to that, like it's an e-commerce business and they're switching to WordPress for e-commerce, and you're like, if WordPress crashes, I legitimately have no idea where to go. That might be something for an outsourcing. That might be something to call a hosting company that does WordPress or whatever.
That's exactly like, and I think again, I tend to believe that if they've trusted you with this initial part, they've given you the sale at this point or something like that, that's a mindset that you can take. You can manage the outsourcing. I really think you can. And I think that's another knowledge gap thing that you're going to have to take a risk on because it's not easy. I want to make that clear as well. Is like when you outsource something, you're the boss of the person that you're outsourcing to, right? So you have the boss as the client, and then you're the boss of the person you're outsourcing to. So you're going to learn a lot, but those skills can be invaluable. And if you get the right people in, it's a relationship that you could form with an outsourcing person, an outsourcing company that can build you a business in the end. Because if you have a really good relationship with a developer that is, that's what their expertise are, whatever it is, like WordPress installations, then you open up a whole service arm. Yes, you'll have to charge a little bit more for it, but you open up an entire side of your business. So I tend to think like if you're able to sell, you're probably able to manage that outsource,
Hmm.
and you should take that leap of faith. If you fail, fail gracefully. It's important. We talked about this in the episode. Fail gracefully, like fail with a lot of communication. But I think it's important for you to take that step if the opportunity arises.
Yeah, like I feel like it's almost like the mantra. I don't know if that's the way to say it, but the mantra of this episode kind of comes down to the fact of like, don't think of yourself as like a bad developer or something.
Mhm.
Don't like shrink your knowledge base, or don't like, try to shrink your skill set. Like give yourself, your due. But like know that there are limitations. Know that there are potential failures, right? And like know that some clients are not going to be happy with some stuff. Like, I mean, I'm definitely a person that, errs on the side of caution. I said that earlier. And I'm definitely like one where I'm like, I don't know how to do this. Like, that's it, I'm out. However, how many things have I said, I don't know how to do this, when it's just for myself? And then I just like figured it out. And it's been fine for years, right? Like, and so it's like, yeah, I could technically, I guess, sell that thing that I learned as a service now, right? And to talk about like the outsourcing, I think, like, what's interesting is, well, actually, I'll ask you this, Mike. I'll ask you this. So, like, we've like had conversations on like if Mike and I built like a mega successful business and someone wanted to buy it. Now, this isn't in the cards right now, but just hypothetically, Mike, like you and I have like, had discussions where it was like, oh, well, like maybe if they buy us out, like we'd get a killer job out of it. And I've always been of the mind of like, nope, if you're buying my business, pay me enough so I don't care and kick me out. And I kind of wonder if that is in some way related to how we would handle outsourcing, whether you're still in it or whether you've completely subcontracted it out. Because some people are going to try to be budget conscious, right? They're going to be whatever. And I feel like, and like, correct me if I'm wrong, I feel like that's what you're maybe trying to do, where you're like, hey, I could get a salary from these people. I could do this. This isn't subcontracting. I'm just trying to draw a parallel right now. But it's like, I'm trying to like, you could get a salary, you could get like a decent position, you could, whatever. Like there's benefits to working at places, obviously. Hope so. But then for me, I'm like, you want to buy my business, then buy my business and leave me alone. And so I
Yeah.
feel like that, like it's that would be a parallel to like my outsourcing strategy, where I would be more so like, I've done the steps, I haven't sold myself short, as I've just mentioned. I've decided I'm going to try this. You know what? I can't do this for whatever reason. I've decided I can't do this. Maybe it's not good enough time. I'm not skilled enough, whatever, right? It's too specialized. It's a high stakes app, as Mike mentioned. And so I'm now going to outsource it. My version of outsourcing would be outsource it and I don't want to hear from you again. Like not literally that, but do you know what I'm trying to say? It's like, I want you to build the podcast, app, like a feature of this website, and tell me when it's done, and that's it. And obviously I'm being a little bit, more extreme than I am. Like obviously I'll have conversations with them. But the point of the matter is like, I just want you to do it. I don't want to be involved with it. I don't want to sit there and mess with your CSS and do all this. No. Build it and then plug it in and then like leave me alone. I don't know if that's
I,
a parallel that I get. It just kind of popped in my head, but
so I think that kind of outsourcing and that kind of relationship needs to be built out over time to be successful. Like you can get lucky and find the perfect outsourcing company that can do that, but the reality is that outsourcing is difficult, and there's a lot of bad apples out there that just like, churn the deposit checks essentially, and then deliver you a shitty ass app. And I bet you right now it's even worse with the vibe coding aspect of it. So
right.
like I would be careful about, especially like starting out and just going directly in that approach of being like, oh, I'm just going to outsource this completely, including the management of it and everything.
That's
I
a
feel
bloody
like
good point,
that's a
actually.
recipe for failure. What I would do if you want to get there at some point is go slow, like manage. Start out by managing the outsourcing company very closely, right? Like being on top of them, having multiple meetings a week, just like figure out how they work. And after that, as you build trust between each other, you can start to give them more, give them more, give them more trust, give them more trust. If it works out, if not, cut the relationship, start again with someone else. That's the risk of outsourcing, right? And the other thing is like you asked another question is like how would you go about the outsourcing aspect of it as well? Like where would you go? Would you go to an outsourcing company? Would you go like where did you find outsourcers? My personal preference for outsourcing is not an outsourcing company like offshoring or whatever. I think it's better to find developers that you vibe with that you can give extra work to because
Okay.
there's
Yeah.
multiple advantages of that. One is you might be giving a junior an extra, an extra ability to experience some stuff. A junior would be not maybe suitable for the black box or like the unknowns, but they could be suitable for accelerating certain parts of your development process. Would be probably cheaper and stuff like that. So you're giving an ability for someone else to learn. You're mentoring them potentially. So it's et cetera, et cetera. The other option is again, you find experts that are really good at certain things, and you do that through meetups, you do that through communicating, networking, forcing yourself out of your comfort zone to go do that because that's going to help you not only find developers, it might help you find clients and stuff like that. So there's multiple positive aspects about getting into the community enough where you have a pool of developers essentially that are all either looking for a side gig, looking for work at that time, need to fill a gap, or maybe they're just out like contractors that want to work on multiple projects at the same time. There's developers out there. And if you build that personal relationship, you build that trust, that's going to be a really good like working relationship moving forward where you could potentially have a partnership in something or potentially have them, have a multiple of those people and start building out an entire agency and stuff like that. You have that trust being built out. That's my preference, not easy. It's much
Right.
easier to just go online and type in outsourcing and, click on the first company and start talking to their managers. They're going to sell you everything that you could possibly think of that can be done. If you go on LinkedIn, you're going to get a bunch of them as well. The reality is it's very difficult to vet those. Like you're gonna have to give them like sample projects. You might even have to pay for that and stuff like that, where you like maybe don't risk it on a client project, risk it on an internal app or something like that, just to vet them. That's my advice. Not easy advice to follow, but something that could have multiple benefits down the line for you.
And I mean, like, it's good advice because, like, the very first thing I thought of was, like, think of something that is, like, always high stakes, for example, which is, like, being a general contractor and subcontracting out, like, something crucial to a house. If you subcontract it out and you're like, I'm not gonna have any electricians. I'm gonna subcontract out all my electrician stuff, which is, like, very common. I mean, imagine just, like, hiring somebody you didn't trust to be your electrician
Exactly.
and like the disasters that would happen on projects, the literal like deadly fires and things, right? The things that wouldn't work, the electrical shock, god knows what else could happen with electrical because I am not an electrician. But
Mhm.
the thing is it's like I better freaking trust this electrician. And like even as like a homeowner, if I have a couple things to do and like one's a small job, I might be like look up the Google reviews or whatever. Okay, that guy person's pretty good. Here's this one small job, and if they do good, then maybe talk. So like it's a very good point. Like there's definitely going to be people like entrepreneurs out there listening to this being like, I can outsource this stuff. All right, cool. Let me just like start a small business. It's a faceless company and I was gonna outsource everything and I'll do all the marketing. It's like maybe, but like Mike's right. Like you kind of have to do like legwork effectively in order to like find outsourcers that are good and like people you vibe with or what have you, like all the stuff Mike said. Makes total sense. It's not outsourcing, I guess, like I always thought, like at least in the context of this episode, just as a closing note, was like kind of like the last hurrah. Like you're just sort of like, okay, like I took on this job and I can't do this thing. I'm gonna outsource this, or maybe that was the plan all along, but it's like, I'm gonna do 90% of it, I'm gonna outsource 10% of it or something. But you're 100% right, Mike. Someone out there listening is like, I could just outsource 90 to 100%. Why don't I just do that? And it's like, well, actually, funny enough, we have a client that tried to do that and then tried to have us help him do that.
Didn't work out very well.
It didn't work out really well. And we warned him, we're like, think this is going to be more work than you think, bud. And he's like, nah, it's going to be good. Every single project failed. And that's not on us. That's on him. So yeah, it was a big mess and not great. But anyway, I think, unless you have anything else to add, Mike, I think that might be the end of today's episode.
I think that's it. Yeah. Good one.
Alrighty. Well, if you would like to support episodes like this, you can do so on Patreon. That's patreon.com/HTML the things. Many thanks to our $3 tier patrons: Tim from the Web Hacker on thewebhacker.com, Jason from Geek Life Radio via geekliferadio.com, Garrett Segal, Level Up Financial Planning via www.levelupfinancialplanning.com, Magnus from YesWeb via yesweb.se, Syntaxify from the HTML All the Things Discord server, and Stacy Mosseler from the website swoonworthydesigns.com. And also, I closed my notes right as I was talking, and then I have the edge bug where it hangs, so I can't open a new thing. So, Mike, entertain the people while my edge sits there and looks at me like, why did you click something?
If you're watching this live video, or not live video, just video on YouTube, you can see that I actually
We're
have
live. I'm naked.
a Code Rabbit t-shirt on that we just got in the mail. It's pretty sick, actually. Nice looking t-shirt. Excited to wear it while actually getting Code Rabbit to review my pull requests.
Yeah, they hooked us both up with shirts just to let you guys know. Mike just has my shirt because we ordered them to want to address less packages and such. But thank you for holding down the fort. Remember that you can go and get yourself some traditional or more, I guess, modern kind of whatever, some developer education using the Scrimba platform. And you can get up to 20% off a Scrimba Pro plan using our link that'll be in the show description as well as in the show notes. You can use their interactive media player code editor to pause and interact with whatever the instructor is doing on the screen. Again, full details in the show notes on htmlallthethings.com. The link will be in the show notes and in the description. And last but not least, remember that we are powered by Code Rabbit. As Mike said, they give you the power of AI code reviews to help cut down your code review time. Check out the link in the show notes and episode description to net yourself a 14-day free trial. No credit card needed, and just a 2-click sign up with a GitHub or GitLab account. And we'd also like to give a shout out to Michael Araka, contributing author on htmlallthethings.com. Michael is the author of Self-Taught the X Generation blog at selftaughttxg.com. And feel free to leave a comment or a review on the platform you are listening to this on and this outro. Maybe we need to work on the outro now. The outro is really long, but it's just the outro. Someone in their car, like right now, while they're like, man, my next podcast is coming up, because they don't have like the controls to like press next in their car, is being like, Matt won't stop talking. And you're right.
That's 100%. Yeah.
Another dramatic pause as well. And yet one more. Okay, I'm gonna stop trolling. Goodbye, everybody. We're signing off.
You've been listening to HTML All the Things Podcast. Web development, web design, and small business. We hope you've gotten some useful and practical information from this show. And we hope you appreciate that we talk to you like human beings. And we hope you had some fun. We'll be back soon. But in the meantime, hit us up on social media on Facebook, Instagram, and Patreon at HTML All the Things. And on Twitter at HTML Everything. Until next time, this is HTML All the Things, signing off.